Hello everyone, my name is Justin Telmo, and today I'll be bringing you a recap, if you will, of a level that Conrad Nelson and I made for CMPS 164. This is the Game Engines class at UC Santa Cruz, and we built a level for our first assignment in Unreal Development Kit. So let's go to Instant Action. Let's choose the map, make sure we have the right map. It's called CMPS 164. Let's go to settings list. We don't want a challenge, so we'll go to novice bot settings, set the number of bonus to 2. So what we want to go over today is basically the geometry of the map first of all. We'll talk about some of the challenges that went into designing the map, what it was inspired by, things like that. Then we'll get into more detailed things like player spawns, item spawns, and lighting. Finally, we'll talk about the interpactors that are the elevators and how the AIs use nodes to do pathing. So let's start the game off. The first thing we'll do is do a little flyby of the entirety of the level. As you can see here, the level is modeled after DE Rats, or rather inspired by. It is a level from Counter-Strike, a map from Counter-Strike, where you play as a counter-terrorist or terrorist in a kitchen sink, or rather an entire kitchen. The first thing we have here is the top level. This probably took the least time. The kitchen sink, as you can see here, relatively fast to model thanks to Conrad Nelson's incredible 3D modeling skills. Years of practice at hand, taking him about maybe 2 minutes to do this in all honesty. The rest of the challenge was adding in grav pads, adding in the pickups, and figuring out how big we wanted the level to actually be. So we started with this actually. This was the very first thing we did, this sink right here. So we basically cut a bowl out, half a bowl, and actually what we did was we made this huge cube, which we thought would be the entire level, and just cut a little half circle out of it using the sphere tool, the sphere brush. And so we have down here 2 elevators. The level is more or less symmetrical. There's one elevator shaft over here and another on the completely other side, which we take down and get to the first floor of the bottom floor. As you can see here, there's a path leading from the elevator to the center of the map, with 2 pathways on each side. And if you go past here, we see the room is almost symmetrical, paths on 2 sides. There's also bottom floor, which is nearly symmetrical except for lighting, pillar number, and that little ball we'll talk about in a little bit. As you can see here, there are 2 open doors. One has no pickup on top, and the bottom level there's a quad damage room. We'll talk about the pickups later. But I wanted to talk about this little block here because this block gave me a little bit of trouble. This block was our attempt at an elevator, a mover, first attempt that wasn't a static mesh, and it caused more problems than it solved. Originally, we just wanted this thing to levitate in the air for a little bit, give off the feeling of some unnatural forces making the block float. At least this was my intention. And then we kind of just wanted to keep it there as an obstacle, because why not? The map is fairly balanced, if you are using my terms of balance, in which I made it, therefore it's balanced. The pickups are kind of random, but I keep saying that. We'll talk more about that later. The geometry of the level is fairly straightforward. There are a couple hallways. There is one hallway over here that has a bunch of health vials and a plasma rifle, and another smaller room that's next to it that has a big gold keg of health. Okay, actually I think that's all we have in terms of the geometry, unless we want to talk about these pillar doors, which we took a pillar brush, or the circular brush, and threw it on its side and cut out a hole in the wall. Next thing I want to talk about are lighting and pickups. So as you can see here, there's lighting on the most of the level, but these lights are not actually the focal centers of the lights. We actually put point lights somewhere closer to the top center of this little, I guess you could call it corner. The center of the light's more around here. We wanted to give the feeling of the corners being less illuminated, so it would look like this light is doing all the work, but in actuality it's not. One of the challenges we faced with the UDK UI is that we had to give these lights different values, RGB values, so that this one would glow blue, one down there glows red, one down there glows green, stuff like that. And just because of the UI, once we found it, it was really easy, but it was kind of difficult to find the option to change these values. And as you can see, I spawned all the way up there. There are multiple player spawns. Even though this is a 1v1 map, you can play with more players. I'm not exactly sure what the cap is. I'm pretty sure it's the game's cap. We didn't actually set a cap as there are only about 8 spawns, but I think you can play with more than that. Item pickups. The players always spawn near items, but not weapons, which is funny because if you've played a UT game before, you'd realize that if you pick these up and then you pick up a rocket launcher, these don't go to waste. Like, that's added to your rocket inventory. So it kind of got us thinking about how ammo is actually handled in the engine. But that's not for this course. Not for this assignment. It's for another assignment. And as you can see here, we have a pickup that is the armor plating, and it gives you, I think, about 50% more armor than you usually have, which you start out with 0. So assume you have 1 and you get 50%. Fuzzy math right there. Right here we have the big old kick of health, as I mentioned earlier. And adding in pickups was not that hard, actually. It was a very straightforward process, didn't give us that much trouble. Thankfully, it felt a little bit like creating a skate park in Tony Hawk, actually, this level, if you've ever played a Tony Hawk game before. Of course, this is very different. This is a level for a shooter versus a skate park, but a lot of the core concept remained the same in terms of what would make it fun to play. Symmetry makes it pretty fun. And balance. Symmetry and balance, I think, are interchangeable here, so take that as you will. There are 3 types of weapons on this map, as default with most UDK engines. Or UDK levels, sorry. We have the shock rifle. Or pulse rifle. Plasma rifle, thank you. Plasma rifle, which is located over here. We have the link gun, which you start out with. And the rocket launcher, which I mentioned earlier, which is on the top floor. Now let's move into the interpactor. This little elevator, these 2 little elevators caused us a great deal of headaches. The first problem we ran into was we thought that we needed 2 lift centers, one up down there, one up here. In reality, that was breaking our lift. When you use an interpactor and you use it as a lift center for especially a mover, you only need 1. We then added nodes to have the AI's path. We added 1 to probably each pickup, and then a few randomly, just to have the bots have some semblance of AI, which on novice difficulty doesn't seem like they do either way. There are switches that control the animation of the mover, which we made in Kismet and Matinee. We did the animation in Matinee, obviously, and we used the logic for going up and down in Kismet. One thing that we encountered was that the boss will actually stand in the center here, and they'll say, hey, I want to go up. And so they go up. But they get here, and they're on the same switch, which says, hey, I want to go down. So they kind of get stuck in this infinite loop and don't really get out of there until another player or bot enters the arena. And that was the big gripe, and we actually did not fix that well. And so the final thing I wanted to talk about was, and wait for it, the ability to fall through this elevator. In a very, very rare case, you will actually jump from here, the elevator will be getting called up, and you'll actually go through it. We don't know why. And while we're on that tangent, the elevator seemed to fall a little bit too fast, meaning that if you jumped at all, you would actually take all the damage for jumping up there to down here, which would usually kill you in 1 or 2 jumps. and we wanted to slow that down, but we didn't get time to as it had been past the deadline. So, more or less, this is the entirety of myself and Conrad Nelson's level. I hope you guys enjoy. Maybe play a couple of games with it. Ask me for the level. And I will see you guys next time.